I'm Tyler, and this is the AntiSocial Network.
Don't look away. Let the fear wash over you.
How? How do you manage every time to pick open a wound to a fresher hell?
Welcome to your number one source of internet oddities.
My IQ is the highest among all Reddit.
That's not saying much.
Here we host conversations with interesting people across the internet.
There's something beyond the direct physical observable world. You can't quantify, you can't put under a microscope. If you don't want to, immediately adopt the Muslim understanding of that, that's fine. You'll get there eventually.
You haven't heard of them, but I have.
It's not just witchcraft, it's nerds. You guys are nerds. My parents didn't let me read Harry Potter, not because of the demonic elements. They just didn't want me to be a nerd.
Join us every Friday for discussions on culture, entertainment, politics, religion, and whatever happens to catch our fancy that week.
I've always deemed myself an evil capitalist.
Because that's how they get you. They get in your head. They start making you ask funny questions. And before you know it, bang, you're a liberal.
I thought it was a matter of record.
Social credit deducted.
You're probably thinking this is some pretty deep stuff, and you're right.
This week we are joined by Sean James, the president of the Music City Film Critics Association. He recently appeared on the local news to discuss his favorite movies of 2022, and now he's here to discuss the just announced for us Oscar nominations. So it's only been about 2 or 3 hours since the world has been informed of what the greatest canonical movies of the last year have been. How are you doing today?
Doing great. It's still early in the week, just trying to power through, but couldn't miss the Oscar nominations this morning. So yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sure thing. I mean, I appreciate you giving me my letting me into your organization, and I guess it's kind of our job to follow this now, because now we both have. This is the first year I've ever had like Oscar screeners, so I've seen the majority of it's come out, it's just definitely a new experience for me, even for someone who was a fastidious movie watcher before this last year. I mean, there were always a couple of Oscar bait movies that kind of purposely missed my observation, just because based on my assumption of how they looked. And this year is not really different, but it's interesting, at least for me, because I'm surprisingly happy with the Best Picture list that's come out so far.
Yeah, just to go from the start there, it's great to have you in the organization, or the association, we'll say. I think this was a very strong, or probably the strongest year of new members we've had in the association in the 5 years we've been together. So we're glad to have you. Yeah, those screeners, they come in fast and furious. It's every day. It's almost every hour, it feels like, or every few hours. So, but yeah, I mean, the packages that, I don't know about you, but like at one point the packages or the emails just like, all right, I think I've seen everything. Man, I'm exhausted. And of course I tell our members, like, you don't have to see literally everything that's sent to you, but they, it's great to have an association, where studios have eyeballs on us, send us stuff. It really is great. And this year, I think we have gotten most of everything for the first time in 5 years. We've been in association, which is fantastic. We got most of, I'd say probably 3/4 past couple years, but this year, I think we got everything. We got everything. I'm looking at the list here of stuff, of all the Best Picture nominees. We got all these except for one film, and that's pretty great. But that one film, it's kind of funny. It's the film, I think Netflix was the one that they didn't spend a lot of money on their campaigning for your consideration stuff. I don't know what the reasoning was behind that, but I mean, this is a great Best Picture list, and seeing this film that we didn't receive, I think it speaks to it. Got 8 nominees. Of course, I'm talking about All Quiet on the Western Front. So
I was gonna say, I mean, we did get a couple of Netflix movies. I was curious that of all of them wound up on the Best Picture list, but not that it's bad. It definitely kind of fits the style of what previous Best Picture stuff, because they like their war movies. So that didn't surprise me that it wound up on the list. Just that that we got boxes for White Noise and Knives Out too, with basically nothing for All Quiet, and this one just kind of proved to be the underdog. Maybe not even the underdog. It just kind of got through by its own dignity more than anything on this list. It seems like.
Yeah, it's quite something because, I mean, as you've seen this cycle, and you probably saw in previous years, Netflix spends a ton of money on campaigning their films. They are trying so desperately to get that Best Picture statue, and they have yet to succeed. And so it wouldn't surprise me, you get all these executives in a room, and they're like, well, what are the films we're going to be campaigning for? Which ones are we going to be pushing the hardest? Of course, the one at the top of the list is going to be a Knives Out sequel. So you get that stuff piecemeal that they send us, and then, of course, you got Pinocchio, a Guillermo del Toro movie, animated. It's definitely going to win Best Animated Feature at the Oscars. But I just feel like they just probably just sat around and were just like, you know what, All Quiet on the Western Front, we don't need to put anything into that. We'll release it at an odd time and see if it gains any traction. And it's made its way all the way up to here, which I mean, it's a great film, like you were saying. The Academy loves their war films, but I tweeted this out earlier. It was like, I wonder how much the campaigning budget was for this film compared to something like Glass Onion, which, if any of the stuff that we received is any indication, we spent a lot of money on that, and Glass Onion comes away with one Oscar nomination as opposed to All Quiet, which got 8. But it was just weird about this. I was talking to a colleague about this morning, and I hate to run off on this, but like, got All Quiet on the Western Front. Their process for the for your consideration campaigning and just the screening stuff in general, they didn't offer that. I mean, usually Netflix PR people, they are fantastic to work with 98% of the time. But this is like the one film, like, you had to specifically reach out to a rep. And then usually one of the Netflix reps will be like, okay, we'll add that to your preview content tab, and then you'll be able to view that, and here's all the information from the director, stuff, etc. Well, with this one was different because they didn't send us, or when you contacted them, then you were forwarded to another PR group associated with Netflix. A first, I think, in quite some time, that was handling all the press for All Quiet on the Western Front. And then you had to wait on that process, which was a little bit longer, but I mean, still, one of colleagues from my site was able to get that digital screener, but it was just so very weird how they handled this whole thing. And I'm very happy for the filmmakers and the film itself. I mean, it's very deserving of one of these, but just, I'm a little flabbergasted by this whole thing. I mean, well-deserved, but still can't believe that this film, which has not gotten a lot of discussion, has as many nominations as Elvis, a film that came out during the summer.
Not to besmirch our wonderful overlords at Netflix, but I'm curious what you think of the packages they send us. Do you think is that weird? That's weird at all that we get those big kind of lush, like, you know, please like us packages from Netflix? Is that because I'm coming at film journalism from a background in doing more medical and business stuff, and if I were to go to a hospital and they gave me a box of stuff and said, "Hey, thank you for reporting on us. Please enjoy this gift basket," like, would that weird you out? Like, I guess this is a little bit more normal in this line, just as a courtesy.
Yeah, I think it is a courtesy, and I mean, I think they're fine. It's just unbelievable how much they spend on these packages compared to everyone else. Everyone else sends either digital screener via email, or they'll send you a DVD in the mail. No, Netflix usually goes UPS, first class package, to your door, and it's a coffee table or book with the film, and then some stuff like apparel, books, what have it. And ever since I've been doing this, there are so many of these books right now that have come out for these Netflix films that you can make a coffee table out of all the coffee table books you've received from Netflix right now. It is absurd. And they're beautiful pieces of art. If you just look inside, a lot of it's just pictures and just what went on behind the scenes. And they're great, but I'm just like, where am I going to put this on a bookshelf? I remember a couple of years ago when The Irishman came out, that one was by far the biggest book they had ever sent. This thing was massive. It weighed probably 5 pounds. How are you going to put that on a bookshelf? It is just, I couldn't believe that. Like, I thought I'd got a package for something I ordered for Christmas, but no, it was this Irishman book, and then it retails for like $200 on the internet. I couldn't believe it. I think with everything that's going on with Netflix right now, the past year that they had, and they're slowing down on how much content they make on the film side, I think eventually they will stop doing these big packages. But I mean, they're nice. I mean, I don't keep all of them, but I will say, if there is one thing Netflix needs to keep going forward, and this is a first, and all studios need to take note of this, keep those screeners as Blu-rays, because Netflix is the first one that their screeners were actually Blu-rays, and those are really nice because you get the high def quality as opposed to all these DVD screeners, which, don't get me wrong, I'm grateful getting those and watching those for consideration, but at the same time, the graininess and where we've advanced technology, it's not like annoying, but I mean, Blu-rays are not as expensive to manufacture now, and all these studios need to follow Netflix and Blu-ray screeners from here on out. And even if Netflix just cuts down on everything else, which I could care less for, all the stuff that they send us, the Blu-rays, they absolutely need to keep those. Like, I talked to Netflix rep and said, I hope y'all keep doing at least the Blu-ray screeners, and they took note of that.
I got the sense that a lot of them, the expectation is you're not supposed to keep them for very long, that you're supposed to just watch them and get rid of them. Because, I mean, with A24 at least, it very specifically said, watch them and dispose of them, don't keep them. So I didn't know what the ethics for the rest of them were. The other ones didn't say, you have to get rid of it, you have to dispose of it. I assume the agreement is just don't put it on the internet, but...
Right. Don't spread it or anything, or take pictures of the screening, stuff like that.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on to the Best Picture noms. We both kind of came into this with different expectations. So I made my list of what I expected to get on the list about a month ago. That kind of evolved a little bit, and it actually evolved away from when it ended up happening, because my brain, when I thought, what are the Oscar picks? What are the ones that are going to go on the list? Immediately, my brain goes to, does it look like Green Book, The King's Speech, or Spotlight? Because those are like the three quintessential Oscar bait movies for me. It's like, how similar are these three Best Picture winning films? And that actually did not work for me this year. My list is surprisingly not in line with what I thought was going to be. So I ended up throwing pulling at the list. I only got like 4 out of the 10, which is surprising to me, because I thought Blonde, Bones and All, The Whale, The Menu, and She Said we're going to wind up on at potential, but evidently not. They did not make that on the list. What were you expecting this year?
I think this was definitely going to be the year that we were going to see at least more than one mainstream film get in Best Picture. So I already knew at the top of my head, Top Gun's getting in, Avatar's getting in. Like, those two are no-brainers. Regardless of what film Twitter will tell you otherwise on the Avatar one. But seeing how the other award shows before the Oscar nominations played out, it felt like most of the field was set. At least more than half of them. You had the two mainstream films, Top Gun, Avatar, Banshees of Inisherin felt like it was a no-brainer. Elvis felt like it was a no-brainer. It's carried all this momentum all the way through the summer to now, early this year. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once was a no-brainer. Fableman's, Spielberg, we know that it was the early front-runner at the Oscars. Tar, the way it's played out with the smaller guilds. But I really did think, because of how strong The Whale has come on recently, that The Whale was going to get in. And then that really left one other spot that I felt like was an unknown. What was going to be that 9 and 10? And I thought one was going to be The Whale. And then the other one I thought was going to be something likely leaning toward international, because of how international has had broader appeal to the Academy and its 10,000 plus members. So I figured if there was one international film that was going to break through, it was going to be RRR. But no, I was sadly wrong, and you know what? It is what it is. But I had 8 of the 10 on there, but I whiffed on RRR and I whiffed on The Whale. But I guess 8 out of 10 is not bad. So, but I mean, it's still, regardless, I think most of the list is really good. I was surprised to see Triangle of Sadness get in. Wasn't too big on that. And then Women Talking, I figured the conversation around women talking had died down in recent weeks, but it's a fine film. Sarah Polley does a great job directing and writing it, but I didn't expect it, but it got in, and good for United Artists getting in there, even though they have done a pretty horrible job campaigning their films in recent years. It felt like the presence of this film was not felt in their marketing or anything. I barely saw it advertised. The year before, you had a similar film from United Artists, Cyrano, starring what's his name from Game of Thrones in it. Similar thing. I thought. Do what?
Peter Dinklage.
Right. And I thought here, just the way United Artists hadn't been really behind women talking, and it was a similar situation to what we had last year with Cyrano, that it was going to be the same thing, going to be left out a lot of categories, especially Best Picture. But no, it broke through, and good for United Artists, good for that filmmaker and the people that worked on that. So.
Yeah, I mean, going back to RRR, I genuinely thought that had a chance of getting on there. It wasn't ultimately on my list of Oscar predictions because it felt like the odd candidate out, like Parasite was. But the fact that Parasite won made it feel like it was possible RRR could repeat that success and just kind of be the runaway film of the year, because it especially with the momentum that film had back in April, May, June this year, where just it seems like every big name in film Twitter was just not shutting up about it. And I was glad I got to see it at the Belcourt, and finally got to see it on the big screen the way it would. I recall when I believe what's his name over at the Nashville scene introduced it. He's like, we were given very specific instructions. It has to be as loud as a Marvel movie, and that's fair. And I was really surprised that didn't end up breaking the list. But I guess that's just a little too ahead of where the Oscar committee is currently, even as it is changing and getting a little younger. I don't know.
If anything, for RR, it's open doors, I think, for a lot of people. Even if it only gets one Oscar nomination, which Best Original Song, it's got to win that. That's going to make the Oscars the must-see event this year. Is to see how they do that on stage. But if anything, this film, beyond the Oscars, is going to open the door to people, to Indian cinema, Bollywood, Tollywood, whichever one you want to categorize that, though they've said it's Tollywood. This is a breakthrough in general, at least for American audiences, to expand their horizons. So disappointed didn't get in, but I'm thrilled with the reception this film has gotten. And I thought it was there. I think it was pretty close. I bet if you if they ever released the ballot numbers, I bet RR was very, very close to getting in that 10th slot. But it is what it is.
I mean, I'm surprised it didn't even get a Best International nomination. Like, and I'll admit I have not seen EO or Argentina yet, but I'm hearing a lot of buzz around both. But I have not. I was surprised it did not edge out anything else on the 5 that did make it.
They were both pretty good films, but I mean they don't stand next to RR respectfully.
Yeah.
But RR, usually with international films and what gets selected from which country, there's always controversy surrounding the film that gets selected from the country, and I forget which one that came out of India. It's gonna drive me crazy now, but essentially when that happened, when RR wasn't selected, that really dented RR's chances Best Picture. But I thought the way they've been campaigning this film throughout the fall and all the events they've been doing, they've been in the filmmaker and the actors going around all LA the past month or two in this big push. It's unfortunate that didn't get in, but you know what? Still, it's a great breakthrough regardless for both outside the Oscars and then just even getting original song for an Indian film. So congratulations to everyone on that. But yeah, disappointed. I mean, in my heart, it is my favorite film that has been nominated for any Oscar this year for any category.
Yeah, that's same for me. The Oscars feels like an abusive relationship in a way, because again, I'm not even mad at you at this point. I'm just disappointed. It's like I know you could have done better, but you chose not to. But oh well, they made their decision. We have to live with it. Much like Spotlight. So like based on what's on the list now for Best Picture, what do you think? What do you think actually does end up edging out, and what would you, or alternatively, what would you prefer edges out?
When I look at this list from all the way down from All Quiet on the Western Front to Women Talking, I think personally for me, I would like to see I would like to see The Banshees of Inisherin win. This film I really liked it on the initial first viewing. We saw it a couple months before it came out, and it grew on me, and then I saw it again, and then I bought the Blu-ray, and just a film I really do appreciate, and something that made me think long after I saw it the first time and even the second time. It's got the best 4 core cast members in any film from 2022, in my opinion, even though it didn't get a Best Acting Ensemble nomination from our local critics group, which was very surprising, but that's another story. That would be my personal pick. But I'm looking at this, and everyone wants to keep on pointing toward Everything Everywhere All at Once. And don't get me wrong, this is a great film. It's probably one of the 15 best films I saw last year. I remember they screened it for us in the IMAX theater at Opry Mills here in Nashville, Tennessee. I really enjoyed it. I gave it a stellar review. It stayed with me throughout the year. I bought the Blu-ray, and I rarely buy Blu-rays. And it comes with the most nominations this year's Oscars with 11. I get all this momentum and everything, but something in the back of my head keeps on wondering, with 10,000 members voting for Best Picture, how many will embrace it or have embraced it? And I have to wonder I don't think it's the most appealing of all these films. And I do think that people can doubt it. People can doubt it, what I'm about to say, but I really do think if there is one film that is going to win Best Picture and has a good chance and people want to dismiss it because it's a blockbuster, I think they shouldn't ignore, and that's Top Gun Maverick. I really do think Top Gun Maverick's going to have a really good shot at winning Best Picture, and I think it might have the edge. And everyone wants to talk about With Everything Everywhere All at Once. I get it. Great film, and if it wins, I'll be very happy for them. A24 winning Best Picture at the Oscars, very happy. They're a great studio. They put out expensive, cool merch. But someone brought this up earlier that it dawned on me, and everyone's like, well, Everything Everywhere All at Once is going to win because it got the most nominations, it got all the right categories and everything. Well, got 11 of those. But if you look at last year, the most nominated film at the Oscars was Power of the Dog. It got 12 nominations. What won Best Picture? Coda was nominated for 3 awards. And we know what happened there. And I look at Top Gun Maverick, and it's got 6 nominations, including Best Picture. And even though there is hoopla around Tom Cruise not getting nominated for Best Actor, I still think of all these films going up against Everything Everywhere All at Once, I think Top Gun Maverick stands the best chance at winning Best Picture over Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's got the broad appeal. It was the film that brought people back to the cinemas. Everyone loves this movie, and they either love it or they thought it was really good. That just feels like when you have a voting group of 10,000 people, that would be the one to where everyone can get behind, and it might not get the most first place votes for Best Picture. People forget how the voting system works with the Academy, where it's not based off of one film selected for this. It's this tier thing. So if it gets second, third place votes, a lot more of those, that's gonna make it, or that's gonna have it as the winner. So I don't think anyone needs to count out Top Gun Maverick. I do think that has a legitimate shot to win Best Picture right now.
I definitely can see why people think it is that Everything Everywhere All at Once is the one that's going to win. I'm looking at the Vegas odds right now, and it says that one has the best chance at the moment. Or at least it looks like it. But it definitely feels like that's the movie that's one of the ones that would be brought in by the younger voters, because I really don't see the voters who like Spotlight and Green Book liking Everything Everywhere All at Once, like the 3-hour art house existential postmodern movie. It's like it's so outside of their taste. Like at least stereotypically speaking, if I had to, the pure chaos option for me would be to root for Tar or Elvis to win, because I would enjoy film Twitter just absolutely melting down if Tar won or if Elvis won, just because that would confuse everyone. Or even people that like that film was like, wait, it won? it's like that would be just amazing. But if I had to put my own betting odds, I would say the likely winner is probably either All Quiet or Fabelmans. I mean, to my knowledge, that it's been a while since Spielberg has won any Best Picture Oscars or major. And something that would be distinguished given his career, and I could kind of imagine the Best Picture going to that just as kind of a, thank you Spielberg, we all like you, Mr. Spielberg, we appreciate everything you're doing, and it's inoffensive, it's warm and cozy, and no one hates it, and everyone's just like, oh, it's Fabelmans, and of course then like we were talking about, you have All Quiet on the Western Front, which is just kind of silent movie, like this quiet movie with no promotion that just made its way onto the list by just kind of inertia, which makes me think it might have a little more weight than we would expect. So I mean, but if I did have to say what I think the safe bet is, like in terms of like what should win, I'd probably back you on Banshees, just because of how it's one of the most dignified things on the list and one of the best just straight works of cinema on this list. Although it just depends on what outcome I'm kind of rooting for. Like I said, I would enjoy the pure chaos timeline option of picking whatever is going to make film Twitter is just the even worse.
Yeah, because apparently the 1% that makes up, people that see movies is on film Twitter. It's also the same audience that said Avatar: The Way of Water was not going to be successful, and it's now crossed $2 billion. It now is a Best Picture nominee. I mean, that's the thing I think a lot of people don't understand as far as with films and everything in general is that just because what's on film Twitter and is said there does not mean that's what everyone else thinks or what everyone votes for with the Academy. Because, last year it was like, oh, everyone was like, well, it's got to be The Power of the Dog. It's got all the momentum behind it. And Oscar voters just, nope, Coda.
I'll be honest, I still haven't seen Coda. I had no desire to watch Coda, and it winning Best Picture did not make me retroactively want to watch it.
That's not a bad thing, honestly. If you hadn't seen it, I thought it was really good, but I know some people roll their eyes at it when they viewed it and think it's pretty ho-hum, but it really got me. It was a great film, very deserving to win, I think, in my opinion, but I can also get the criticism behind her, people not fully embracing it, but that was a film that premiered at Sundance this time last year, and 14 months later won Best Picture. Just unbelievable how that went from such small beginnings at that festival to Apple buying it, then releasing it in the summer, and then somehow getting this late momentum, the right way, by the way, last minute momentum, the right way to get in, as opposed to at least one category in particular with the Oscars this year that really just does not sit well with me right now.
I'm trying to think if there's any other notable snubs this year, because I feel like this was a really strong year for film in general, and there was a lot of things that could have made it on the list. Although I was surprised that we didn't see any, Babylon didn't get any love.
Babylon was kind of, at least to me, I think Babylon was more of you either love it or you hate it.
Oh, it very much is. It's wildly irresponsible, but I'm like, I could also see that being a movie that just makes it onto the list purely because the Academy likes Damien Chazelle. So,
yeah. Well, it's weird because I don't know as far as with Damien if he's lost some traction with Academy because of the weird controversy that came with his last film, First Man, and the whole planting of the flag situation, which I think was just absolutely ridiculous. But I don't know. He'll be back. He's got that big, massive deal he just signed with Paramount, so curious to see what he does there. As far as snubs, when I look at all the categories and everything, I think the big one is I know Best Actress is front-loaded with Michelle Yeoh in Everything Everywhere at Once and Cate Blanchett in Tar, but I thought Danielle Deadwyler, her performance in Till was incredible, and the fact that she didn't get on or get a nomination was a humongous snub. And what's infuriating is one of the nominations there, Andrea Riseborough for her performance in To Leslie, a film, I'm sorry, but not many people have seen, and members of the Academy actively campaigning this film and this performance. This last-minute campaign is just not the right way to go about it. I'll be curious to see what the Academy does on this because there were people actively on social media and everywhere campaigning this, and members of the Academy are not supposed to be involved in campaigns for films. They're not. It is frowned upon, and I wonder if there's going to be some backlash as a result to this. I do think it sets a bad precedent going forward for the Academy if people or members of the Academy are going to be openly campaigning for stuff like this. There's nothing against Andrea. She's a great actress. But the way that she got this nomination because of this last-minute campaign by so many people that were publicly campaigning for it within the Academy just to get that fifth spot in there, it just very awful way to go about that. And I feel for people like not just Danielle Deadwyler, but also Viola Davis, the Woman King. Incredible performance in there too, not nominated as well for Best Actress. That those were the two biggest snubs, especially Danielle Deadwyler from Till, that I couldn't believe didn't make it. And the only reason they didn't make it, one of them didn't make it, was because of this campaign for Andrea's performance in a film that, like I said, no one has seen. No one. They didn't send us a screener. They didn't invite us to a screening in person for it. And I know we're not the Academy, but this is a film that the studio behind it, I don't care if it's big or small, but I hadn't seen it campaigned anywhere. And if you can't make it accessible to me or to most people, I don't know what else to tell you, but that whole thing just does not sit right with me.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. I just to close, I will say I think this it goes to show just how good this year is that there are movies on my predictions list that in a lesser year would have absolutely made it on just by weight of the director's name. I mean, I think that we've all had our conversations about Don't Worry Darling and Amsterdam and Blonde and She Said at this point, but in a lesser year those would have been Oscar noms. They would have made it through just by weighted by the inertia of what their topicality and the people involved. So the fact that we have this really full list of pretty much all bangers, like pretty much all things that people can be like, yeah, I could see that. I think that's a really great sign this year overall. We're about out of time. Where can people find you and support you and learn more about the Music City Film Critics Association?
Well, just one quick thing, just to go off what you said. I think this was a great year, especially for most of the nominations we got. Very strong year. I don't know why we got some backlash that this was kind of a more weaker year. It was an absolutely great year, and there was stuff, like you said, that didn't make it on your the nominations that you would have seen probably get on there any other year. And seeing 9 of the 10 Best Picture nominees be theatrical first, that's just great to see. But people can find my work at 615film.com. They can find me on Twitter at SeanJ8. You can find more information about the Music City Film Critics Association on Twitter at MCFCA615 or on Facebook if you just search Music City Film Critics Association.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time over your lunch hour. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, man.
Have a good day.
Yeah, you too.
The AntiSocial Network is a Groupthink Productions and cultural review podcast. Editing, hosting, and producing are by Tyler Hummel, art by Crystal Cali, and original music is composed by Guap Squad Gang and Melissa Lafira. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment below and tell us anyone you think would be a good guest for the show. Thank you for listening.